to justify the investment of time and effort, because it is a lot of work for a lot of people. And if it just isn't paying off and it's not worth that time, then we're a business and we have to put our effort somewhere where it's going to be fruitful.
Speaking of camera work a little bit, it would be nice to me to be able to see like the zoomed out view of the whole arena for the entire match, because that's part of how I keep track of what's going on. When you zoom in on a specific ship and that's all I can see, then it's hard to understand what's going on in space. It'd be nice to be able to have like a split panel over on the side where you can zoom in on a couple of different ships and maybe even show like what the bands are for the entire match, because sometimes I think back and go, what were the bands?
Normally we actually do have the bands displayed, but unfortunately Fancy UI, which is that whole bar at the bottom,
Right.
gremlins in it. This year we have a number of gremlins because we did some things that were not things that were not supposed to be done to the system to make things work like the dual systems. So fans should be back on the Fancy UI as normal for the World Championship, I believe, actually, and definitely for the tournament next year. We have, for the most part, like in the last couple of years, been putting in the bottom right-hand corner, we've been putting like the overview camera, which is basically like zoomed out, like showing the entire arena. I mean, there was somebody that floated the idea of just streaming the overview to a separate stream.
Yeah.
So that's another idea we're looking into and considering.
I mean, if I could wave my hand and make a wish happen, that's what I would want. But I understand all of the camera work requires resources and walls in, and I don't know how much extra capacity you all have.
Well, that one is probably not as difficult. It just means we've got to set up another machine to stream out and just make sure it's fine.
I think the problem though becomes, like you said, when you try to stream too much onto one screen, to have direct, I don't know, via link or alternate streams, the ability to show multiple content like that would
If we're going to do it, it would probably be a separate stream or using some kind of crazy, amazing technology.
So I could build it into an overlay for you. I also have a player that could show 3 separate streams, so you could resize them and see which one is larger.
It's way important to say that.
Technology.
I know which platforms, so that's why I'm like, I'm just waiting for it to launch.
So, I'll go with you because Ben's already told.
Question, has everybody thought about any like grandstands or seating anything from the earlier age or people with a camera where you can move it around now, people come and watch actually on the field?
We have had, I think it was the Neo, that we had actual people in our cantina on the 4th floor when we were actually streaming. We had an audience there. I mean, there's not a lot of people who would actually came to Iceland for that. So
I'm not talking about game space.
Oh, it's
computer
green
so like in a pod on grid.
So like you move when you move the player, you move a bunch of people as well. Like you can move
that's an interesting idea because I could just like appear in Polaris with a QA smartphone.
Well, you control when you come in.
Yeah.
Or just camera only.
Well,
right? Disembodied cameras.
A lot of other games that are going more into esports have a spectator mode. It might be possible for you to be like, I assume the camera of this other person without having to necessarily be there.
You don't need to see my intel.
No, just like to look at.
Just like following somebody in a team deathmatch or something where you're looking at different camera angles.
Yeah, to have somebody actually in the system and have all of that stuff, that would be wonderful. Like in many ways, I mean, streaming platforms are great and they have all sorts of wonderful things, but honestly, I think in most cases, that an actual in-client streaming option is just better because, one, you don't have to send video over the internet, and that takes a lot more data than just sending positional packets essentially for where everybody what's happening. So I think I'm guessing it's more scalable. I'm not a technical guy, I'll be honest.
My thought on that was you actually have control of your own camera. You're not stuck to what the streamer's doing or what the cameraman's doing. You move the camera around where you want. Like for him, he likes it zoomed out so you can see the whole view. So you can zoom in and watch the event fire. I mean, you get control of your own camera.
The only thing that is really a concern is like there's 2 parts to that. Essentially, some of the stuff we use for the tournament tool is in most respects hacking to the point where somebody should be in the building wearing a cowboy hat whenever the tool is run on TQ, and basically making sure there's not so many people there that gets overloaded, which I don't think is a big problem if we've just got people sitting there doing nothing. Maybe just the pods. I mean, it's an interesting idea. It's kind of radical in many respects, but honestly, I don't have a lot of arguments to say this is actually a bad thing.
I think there's might be a couple of pissy people though, if like their teammates who aren't playing on comms with them can go on the field and look at the opponents like that Proteus over there. Oh, it's got a remote repair module and it's got no turrets on it. You know, but I mean, like the opportunity for people to get like intel when the teams take the grid and feed it back to their own players to free up their team's headspace to worry about other things than looking at what the other team setup is.
I mean, actually, I had one team captain actually this year asked me basically, can we have an extra guy in the fleet just to manage the fleet layout? Basically, to know, like this is actually a serious thing because then it's one less thing for them to worry about. As somebody who's not moving systems and possibly having the client lag out or anything like that. Basically, so freeing it up. So that's something, it's definitely, I don't really have an argument at the moment to say this is a bad idea or it's so radical. So definitely something I'll go back and think about. And we've got to check everything before we say yes. Like, for example, for that guy, I said no, we can't have an extra guy in the fleet at the moment because we don't know how the tournaments will react. Maybe things will go wrong. Just don't want a chance of this yet. Like, there's a lot of things where it's just like, oh, we can do the same. No, we're going to make it work.
You know, if you have arenas in game, you could test that stuff.
Show us.
But that's actually a really good idea to have like each team have like their own designated like non-combatant, as it were.
The team coach, the team manager, the shepherd,
to manage their own shots of their fleet, to keep track of, okay, here's exactly what you guys, did.
Just to make sure everybody has ammo.
Well, not only that, but it actually,
we've had interesting situations like, this year there was one team, and some of you may remember which match this is. We had a guy who was in what was he flying? I think it was a Damnation in the Shield fleet. Or the opposite one. I think it was a Damnation in the Shield fleet. He was in the wrong ship because he apparently was trying to get a module off of that ship at the time, and they said, oh, we're ready. Oh wait, I gotta switch this thing. Nope, you're in the system now. So they didn't win. But no, just somebody to do things like manage ammo. That's having the non-combatant cat herder. It's not a bad idea, but like I said, I want to make sure it doesn't break everything. So
wouldn't that also have the advantage of, like, in normal sports, the coach often is watching things and can call out problems early.
Yeah.
Because now you have two people who are just watching and each person's advocating for their team, so they can be like, hey, that wasn't right, or
It's like also naval battles too.
Yeah,
It's like
they
you
always
got
got
the
to think
I'm going to basically propose a radical idea. What if you had the ability to have your FC not be in a ship on the team and fighting, but being able to interact still with the rest of the
That's
arena?
part of the skill, is to be able to not only manage your fleet, but manage your own ship.
Yeah.
If you can have an invulnerable fleet captain that basically devotes all his brain power to that takes away 90% of the skill of actually being an FC, is you actually have to still pilot your own ship.
I disagree because I hate using real world examples. I absolutely abhor the idea of using real world.
Well, yes,
But
it'll be easier, but this is easy.
With teams and military and stuff like that, you have the onlookers. But there's a difference between being the FC and being the commander. This gives us the opportunity to have maybe more teams, more FCs who don't have to make those kind of snap decisions, who could just make the smaller decisions on the field, but you still have that great Elise Randolph or something on the side, basically saying, hey, I'm not saying it's a bad idea, and I'm not saying this is. I'm just saying there's merit.
Yeah.
For a manager, not like an actual quarterback.
right. I think that the guy who's calling the targets and the guy who's actually like giving orders within the fleet that's fighting, the FC, should still be in a ship. That doesn't mean that there isn't another role for the guy that's kind of watching the thing, acting as a coach. Because like
If you've got a guy with less to do, he's gonna expand and fill that void. He's gonna be better at calling targets because he's not flying the ship. I can see both sides. Yes, it would take some skill away, but we've seen time and time again, like the top teams have the best individual pilots. It's almost never super FC carrying a bunch of guys who are
You don't really have an FC. You have people, you have teams looking out for everyone. If you have someone that's like omnipotent, can lock everyone or can see everything, you've just given your team a huge advantage. And so once again, you're favoring the bigger groups. So you're favoring someone that has more players.
I don't think that's the case simply because the person person on the outside here, or coach, let's take for a better term, is not always able to see who's targeting until somebody's firing. So any calls that he's gonna make from the outside is gonna be after the fact of what the FC is already doing.
Yeah, but you don't tell someone to shoot something. You tell someone to shoot something. You don't say, oh,
That's the
actually,
FC's
my
job.
team is
That's
not
not the
shooting
coach.
this.
Well,
Yeah, I wouldn't say
FCing in
it's
the
the
arena
coach.
is a little bit different from FCing like in day-to-day TQ. Starters, you don't generally have just one. Usually,
Right.
depending upon the doctrine, you might have 4 different people calling the shots. This guy's taking care of the E-War calling. This one is life support, tackle, this one's the big defense. And it's very fluid and it's very organic in many ways. Everybody, at least ideally, everybody going into the arena for your team has the ability to take over and call the shots.
That's the reason for having it. If that's still favoring bigger teams that have more players to grab from, and it's still giving you, if you have someone who can devote all their sense to it and can look at everything, they are going to be doing it, and rather than so if you're in an arena and you're flying around, let's say I'm in a bomber, I'm not going to have the time to zoom in and look at someone and see, okay, those are actually rapid lights because they warped in at 100 and they were 100. I couldn't look at them because so we were out of look range. I couldn't actually see it. But if and none of us are going to have the time to do that. But if you have that coach that can do that, you can suddenly get so much more intel, and it just it changes everything. And I don't think it would be a good thing, and I don't think it takes away a lot of the individual pilot knowledge of every person on the field is not only looking at the keying up, but still piloting your ship.
Well, I mean, by the time you take the field, it's a little late. You're already got, you're not gonna be able to change out your guns, you're not gonna be able to work.
No, but
strategic decisions.
Hey, guys, you can try and talk for a while. Let him talk.
Alright, so we're talking a lot about the fleet comm experience, how we manage that, how we're bringing some of the fleet comm experience to the viewer.
Nope.
Like, not live, but later. Oh, come on. Alright, yeah, I can tell you don't want to give anything away. Over players play with
I would
both
be
parties.
ecstatic if
It gives the
teams
viewer insight into their mindset.
Yeah, I would be ecstatic for the teams to allow us to basically put their comms on
So,
the internet
you
and
make
their
it.
stuff.
No.
But there's 2 things that make
I'm
it
with
impossible.
Dad.
There's too much of, it's basically leaking everything, so that's a big deal. It's basically all their tactics, how they do other things. And also, we technically have a team rating. So.
But for after the fact, not live, for after the fact.
To speak to what you're saying though, the thing is that EVE is not about forcing people to do things. It's about emergent stuff. So like in the last tournament, we had all of or in the NEO, we had the streamers that all did their thing. That was their shtick. They made the decision to put that out in order to make differentiate themselves. So I think somebody who wants to could definitely differentiate themselves by putting out their videos with their comms, like, especially like if a top team wanted to really talk smack, they could do exactly what you're talking about. But I think that decision should come from the team.
Yeah,
Well, that also
it's
ties
not
back to
even,
what I
it's
was
still
talking about.
It's an individual production using Eve as the playing field. You know, it's like, look, I mean, I'll use the example of televised poker, which the only way that people make televised poker entertaining is to make the players at a final table give away information they otherwise wouldn't want to give away. Nobody wants to give away that, okay, here's what I do with 5-7 suited under the gun at a 4-handed table or whatever.
I think the difference is that you don't have the danger in poker for other people at the table to be watching a TV.
No, I'm not talking live. I'm talking like the purpose of arena, like
I
an NFL player.
But that kind of goes back to what I was saying about the, doing stuff for like certain compositions, certain fits, back in the production.
Well, the NFL analogy is good. A week's worth of play, 16 games a week, produces 4 minutes of audio that they're willing to port out.
Right.
Right? That's because nobody wants their comms broadcast to the rest of the world.
I think it makes the viewing experience to the viewer. If the goal is to cater to the players and give the players absolutely everything they want, you can do one thing. If the goal is to attract new viewers, then sometimes you push back and cause people to do things. So I think that after the fact, okay, here's the moment where here's the comms when they switch primary from this target to this target,
Like a wrap-up thing.
Yeah, I'm not talking live during the actual fight. I'm talking
I see.
I think that's something that the teams can individually choose to.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, I think that after the fight interviews.
After fight interviews would be good.
After fight interviews.
Yeah, but I think, I mean, Eve is a cerebral.
Lay it on field.
Yeah, Eve is a cerebral game, and I think a lot of what you gotta do is, to make it viewable as an e-sport, is make it visceral. All of the top esports, League of Legends, Dota, even Hearthstone is visceral just in the animations.
Right.
So StarCraft, absolutely. I think that, a lot of what I see to make Eve as an esport visceral is, obviously is the commentators to a large degree, getting excited, doing all things. But a lot of it I see is commentators getting excited, oh my God, this shit just exploded when the fight was over 15 minutes ago, and this is just the wrap up. I think, visceral isn't just excitement. Visceral is also bringing the viewer into the mindset of the player.
It's immersion, it's involvement, it's making you feel like you're there.
Absolutely. I think it's worth talking about that the comms are a part of that.
In many ways, it's also a logistical thing of actually getting that all integrated. So I'd love to do it, it's just a lot of things we have to get out of the way, and we have to find willing volunteers that will willingly swear on the
You mean the
internet
top teams
for us.
don't use the built-in voice comms?
See, you're a little bit discouraged, yes.
If I may,
I work for an esports production company that does mobile tanks.
Okay, yeah.
Oh, cool. So.
You want to run for the CSM?
I think there's two things that you hit on that are really interesting. We have statistics to back it up. World of Tanks, if you guys are familiar with it, so much of the game lives in the head, cerebrally, and it's really difficult for them to communicate to new players any degree of what's actually happening. Even when the commanders are actually speaking over it, right? And so for them, it's an acquisition of attention to why they do esports, which you hit on it right away. It's what is the objective of this esports production hall? And if it is acquisition, trying to get new players into it, then let's leverage Azupa's tools. Let's send you 2 audio feeds of our TMP and let people choose which audio stream. And obviously, it's got to be on a delay. The team thing can be worked out. You just have to talk with the captains of the same issue.
Not really work.
But again, see, I don't necessarily agree with that, because I think the comms, honestly, if you're talking about like getting people to understand something and they don't, if they already, the assumption is that somebody's watching the Alliance tournament and already doesn't understand it, and somehow the comms will help them understand it. And I think if you're at that point, I honestly don't think comms is going to help, because like in comms,
So
it's
not about
totally different language.
I agree.
You're not
You have to have a
players
commentator.
too.
You have to have a commentator that helps explain that.
Right.
And
But
it's
that's
actually over a long period of time, where you're keying on very simple things. You're going, hey, this is a very simple
So
thing.
the League of Legends, right, they'll dive into the comms very rarely, and usually for a moment that, it's a team fight, let's listen to them. It won't help at all, but you'll get to hear them scream.
Generally with League of Legends, actually, to bring up an example, I've noticed they bring it up basically, so it's kind of like a recap, like, they'll bring it up like during a team fight, then we play it after the match is finished, or have the winning team when they had like a big team fight where everything's swung after it.
Yeah.
They'll replay that.
But the comms aren't useful, the comms are exciting because there's 5 guys going, kill him, kill him, kill him, kill him.
Exactly.
Yeah, you could find a happy medium where you agree that if you are in the finals, the final match, if it's not rigged, will eventually, like after the fact, be put out with the audio track of the comms with it. And like in order to be part of it, you have to like agree that if you're in the final battle, like I think that that's the one that we should really be able to break apart and disassemble and evaluate.
But I mean, but in terms of trying to get people to understand the nuances, I think you got to do some of that. I think more helpful infographics or commentators talking about, okay, the basics of it helps, things like that help. But you also got to understand.
Infographics is a good one. We've got a whole bunch of info videos that we've got at the moment. However, the library is not complete. Now, are there any particular ones that you think we don't have that you think would be the highest priority to add to that? I'm curious to see what you think would be.
Anything that Fozzie says is part of his little buzzwords. It's like,
Wait, are you talking about the new pilot training videos now?
No. I'm talking about, have you seen the little infographic videos that we put out?
Passive one?
Yes.
Yes, those are really good.
Yeah, we have those. So we didn't use them quite as much as I would have liked to during this AT, but we have a reasonable library, but we still have some gaps. So I'm curious to see which ones do you think would be the highest priorities to basically add at this stage? Which ones do you think what are the most important features or game mechanics that we haven't covered so far?
Fleet types, so, you know, it's not so much like, you don't want to over detail it, but tinker means sit in one spot for this reason, like very simple, right? Rush means these ships going as fast as they can at the end, and rush is freezing.
So I would say some of the better stuff is different because that stuff evolves over time and becomes relevant, and that's the new stuff. But definitely look at it.
But I would say range,
Those are also still
like
the most
the ways in
important
which are the different weapon type ranges.
I would say that you need to consider the fact that a very large, or a significant portion of the people watching are not E players. Friends are E players.
Yeah, I would actually,
I think you're actually
players are
Okay.
But even E players might not know a lot.
Everybody take a step back. Every year there's been a Lions tournament, I've had other people watch it because that's a tool that I use to expose them to Eve. I'm not talking about somebody going and watching it on their own. I'm saying I know for a fact that a lot of people show it to other people as a way of saying like, hey, look at this cool thing that we're doing because it's this encapsulated thing. So what I'm saying is that a lot of the terminology that we come for granted may actually help for like one of those infographics or whatever. A really big example would be those micro jump drive units. Like there's a lot of information about how those things work and why they are, and they're brushed upon by the commentators, but the actual like why they matter, why somebody might die as soon as they jump, that kind of like how that mechanic affects the arena.
What happens when you bump them?
Right, what happens when you bump? Like that's one of those things that somebody who doesn't really know the Alliance tournament may not understand that mechanic.
Let's not even assume people who've never played E. Let's just assume new players
Right,
who are watching the Alliance tournament.
Well, old players, like you don't run across a tinker ever outside of these arenas, right? It's
Well, that's
that type of strategy just doesn't come up.
I'm sorry.
Ask you about player
Yes, have you been seeing EVT Collides?
Have I seen that?
Have you seen EVT Collides?
Oh, yes.
Yes, so that's basically just, do you want to run a tournament?
Actually, yes, we are interested in organizing a player-run tournament, but we don't really know what kind of support we would be able to get. Is there support available? And of course, we're wanting to focus on not the top 16, like EVT. Sorry, EVT, I love you guys, but
Just ask.
you know.
What is that?
So,
Awesome.
what in general is it your hope to be able to support more player-run tournaments?
Yes.
Less?
Yes, I would like to, and for the most part, it's more a case of giving you the ability to run them yourselves rather than have to be, at the moment for EVT Collides, every like once a month, on a Sunday, I basically sit and run all the back end on the server itself, basically. So I'd like to move away from that happening at a larger scale and instead have it that you guys actually have the ability to run these tournaments yourselves.
So I'm going to ask the question that you got to dodge. Is Dojos moving along then?
No, not at this stage.
Okay.
So, thinking about like this ideas for new players for them to interact. I'm in Qatari faction warfare, and it seems like we get lots of new guys who just haven't even been on E for not even 2 weeks. That just jump into PvP and have no idea how to live their ships and know what they're doing. And a lot of times, we're trying, work with those channels, and we help them a lot. But we think would be more epic, more fun is if we could have, and I've talked to the other militias, is to have like special fights between the different factions, like epic battles. And maybe like, for example, to get new players involved, like a special, like basically storyline battles.
Like DMR actually pushing initiative against the Minotaur, or the Minotaur pushing it,
Right, it's like the Minotaur trying to take out an avatar.
Yeah.
It's like, or, something between like well, then we were talking about yesterday, I spoke this about, some of the other CCP people is having like special matches where it would actually create a storyline, and that's how it would go. Like, for example, like, you have some high-stakes systems between the Qatari and Galente border, where if we have like a face-off between the Galente and Qatari, whoever wins the fight gets a system.
So the March Championships, so this is going more towards lore events. The March Championships is kind of going to be an indicator, depending on how well that does, whether or not we might do more law-based tournaments in the future. The other thing is, though, it's a bit of a philosophical quandary around that. With basically, to a certain point, we don't want to have to provide reasons for these battles because we kind of just want you guys to have the reason for these battles yourselves. Like, you should be like, somebody probably does have an avatar somewhere in the last space, or a secret different subjects or something like that, and you can go kill it yourselves. But, I mean, I don't think us basically engineering battles for people like that, it doesn't quite sit right, at least in my mind.
So, I'm going to don on my title of Lord Czar because I've been called it enough times. But I would say that in order to, it doesn't take much for us as a Lord community to be able to accept that something is actually part of the universe. Like AT, almost no work has been done to actually integrate it into the universe, and yet we still kind of accept that it's part of the universe. And so I think that you may be overthinking the integration process. Like, all I really need is the Chamberlain of the Amar to come out and publicly denounce the Alliance tournament, because why would we be wasting all of this resources while the Drifters are attacking, or something like that. You know what I mean? Like, we just need some sort of thing where the empires react to what we are doing.
A side project for Falcon, basically.
There you go. Yes.
You should, I mean, if you want to go more that direction, definitely talk to CCP Falcon.
You don't think I do?
But no, that's a good inspiration, I think.
And yes, they actually started to go over, but so maybe one more question from somebody, the desperate, go be there.
This is a really flippant one. Like, we obviously have a lot of internal discussions with other guys about the tournament and all that sort of stuff. What's like the craziest idea that you come up with that you just threw out?
Oh, that's a good question. I'm sorry, but if I...
Second craziest.
We'll go for third. Come on, tell us something. You see, but we're getting that, like, still down to 10. It's like the type of ideas that are drunk to forget.
Yeah. Well, just something batshit crazy. Come on. Because I would be, the reason I asked is because I'd be interested to see if you threw it out and everyone went,
I don't think we've actually, like, the truth is, though, I don't think we've had any particularly radical crazy ideas. Like right now, at least. For the most part, it's more me saying, this is how we're doing this, and everybody goes, yeah, okay. Although there was kind of, oh boy, there was something we wanted to change with the tournament, like, around now, but because we've got regular box going out, doing anything like that is kind of like crazy, because everything will probably break in the tournament. So actually, we're supposed to test it while, I think it was yesterday, they were supposed to be doing a test, and I haven't had the result of that, so it might be like scattered in pieces on the floor or something.
all right.
Have you ever considered doing larger point fights? Like 1,000-point armies? Like almost like a Warhammer thing? Like you've got, each side is 1,500 points.
Yeah, you see, the thing is that scale of points is small for 100 these days. Usually they go about 2,000 as an average size battle. It seems to be inflating almost as if you need to buy more models.
Yeah, but you're looking at 2,000.
Doing a larger format, it's not something we particularly have put a lot of, well, I don't believe it's ever been brought up, at least to me. So, something to think about. I don't know. I mean, the question is it still going to be interesting with basically when you get to that scale, you start to get some stuff that just doesn't die quickly. Especially, I mean, maybe if we had like 1,000 points and no logistics.
Well, I'm not talking about like a tournament. I'm talking about like a grand, just like a
Grand battle.
A battle royale or something like that.
The other thing is we kind of don't need to like make those happen ourselves because you just are blowing at each other. That's true. So I don't know. I mean, when you get to that sort of large scale, it also doesn't really sit well in my mind for esports. Unfortunately, it's still in. I was out until goodness knows when mode, so I'm not really.
I had nothing to do.
And also, is there a way for us in between commercials, or maybe instead of commercials in some of the games, to do more player profiles or team profiles, so that way we can kind of get behind these people?
We asked them about doing.
Oh, did I miss that?
Well, yeah. We discussed doing a little more filler content, but maybe done more by the community, so it's not as much load as that.
That's good.
Anyway, so gentlemen, I'm gonna have to go because I'm starving and lunch is broken served now.
Yes, lunch.
Thank you. And if you see me around, any more questions or anything else you want to discuss, or the secret plans, or if you want to put yourself on the list for the next tournament, then I'll come to you. And enjoy the rest of the day.
You're not wrong.
I expect to see most of you at the party tonight, and then you get to marital.
I've seen your stuff.
I would like, I would like people to ask me, I would like to see somebody voluntarily.
From where I work, I'm heading back to our Canada.
It's something that I work on.
We've actually had companies offer thousands of dollars in housing. So, the guy that says the three of us, we leave, they're like, okay, so what did you see? And we tell them.
Same thing, you're sitting watching, that's not true, because on Twitch you got the Chinese language, and I'm watching them because I ensure the characters. So it's all about like, understanding. You know Dorothy?
Yeah, well, she's gone now.
Yeah, no, she's
working.
Yeah, no, for sure. She used to, I used to be working for you for myself. Yeah, I have now worked for the company. Yeah. And, yeah, no, it's like,
I know that ESports right now we're doing their funding across all platforms.
Because I was doing ESports.
Understanding how the frame rate. The biggest thing that's current right now is closed captions.
Yes, you had
And being able to support closed captions across all those devices. We've got like 608, 703, TTLA, whatever. We've got all these different support formats. Different types.
I'm sure we just passed them.
Maybe, I mean, well, I guess, Dorothy, since we're working more with North American stuff, I did a lot more work with Henry and
Okay.
Ralph, those guys.
Great.
Yeah, I used to run the Plantronics page when I worked with ESL.
Okay, cool.
So, working toward getting all those.
I'm writing one of those out.
Somewhere like here,
you're
at the end.
And that's
So I'm just posting the pictures like, Dan Morse.
Well, yeah,
Jenny.
yeah, of course. Jenny almost made it, but she didn't.
Yeah, so I was formerly the director of sports for ESL. Did that for a year. It's a esports production house. I actually really wanted to talk to you. We've been to chat about doing some integration stuff with you guys. Very progressive area. Yeah, what's your story?
We just saw that NC got a great award. You saw that?
It's having a production in education, sort of getting through that.
I just heard that.
Adam here does.
This the only thing I heard is that, there's
Anyway, in your future, is MC said that Wrath of God.
Something like this.
Basically, it's that's all that's I don't know if you guys saw this news. You guys are already doing some.
Yeah.
So,
I wasn't involved
I've been playing since 07. I was actually basically, we're like, look, do you realize how much is like just hold it to these supporters? Just hold it.
And then we got forced to be in.
Sure, well,
I think something that was kind of rough during those days, and then I just going into another space mining corporation. I was going to assets.
We want to get a lot of people watching this.
I took 4 weeks to get into no interest. So they finally let me in, and then like after 15 weeks, I had to
we have our hard
handle this anymore.
whatever it is, no, it's class. This is kind of a guys. Do you remember competitive players? You know, like that's the huge.
I'm not an
Making more money. Nice websites. And they did have some
experience, like, trying to direct, like, average people, like, everybody, like, that's not what you go against those persons who established, and like, it's safe, that a lot of male losers have a lot of things to do.
Yeah, the reason why I say I'm gonna hand this extra 2 years.
Absolutely. Shoot me an email, I'll get back to you.
Yeah.
But obviously, no news in the air coming together like.
Last 4 years. So that's exciting, you know.
So basically, so Adam came in, he was the one that took he brought his initial product was basically the audio TV shows and stuff like that. So what I worked on specifically was he actually built that into TV. Or we could also avatar games. So say for think about this. Say you're in a house, you're on your phone or how many devices? Devices, right? So let's say you watch a commercial or say really trying to see one of your devices. What are these? Okay, learn how I can it's basically sort of because obviously something you must like versus something we don't want to live in spanks. We want something you make. So why use it? Because you know how it's kind of fucking now it's something interesting. So
I was always interested in where you got skills that if I turn away from a channel or skip a channel or something like that. You guys need to figure out how to screen stuff like that. CDN.
I would say that is possible, but to be honest with you, it's the So we work with the manufacturers, but that's something we're moving on from. It's because the way they're like, wow, you can do that, let's do that on that's the biggest thing. We've been around so long, we've been on like 21 platforms, and like for instance, they paid for 2 years of this, so that we taught them how to not expect to right? They're out of processor. With them, operating system. So they paid us for that. There are so we teach a lot of companies how to use this stuff. They really don't even realize they got we're really there. So that's more.
Assuming technically.
Are you at the
But I was gonna say, you should really do that. It's funny because you drop a view more, right? Related comments. And then boom, you got your fleet pays attention, right? It's like, okay, anchor up, blah, 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 you know, you got it. And it's funny because that's the only way you can make a hand over to physics. The biggest reason what I like is the history of it. Because I was in the Navy, right? So I pay attention to things like the one of the things that the young folks, right? They went and did the whole thing at the museum. It's like I sat like 3 hours watching or like checking that out. So. I do have the Bismarck.
A lot of people don't really understand it. It's like there's a lot of
No, but I understand. I know, but I understand. Well, no, because it's the way that they designed it, how they brought in the machine,
all that stuff.
the scales that make sense or how they figure out, like, because you got all these long distance, you know, people, it's just like a few days ago. The Citadel issues, and you're thinking, like, yeah, there's also why it's
out of the
because they know people care so much.
bigger projects, real, but don't like to just it's just they're worried about.
or the flags for the German Navy, right? It's so hard for people to understand that that's not a.
No, actually, we're in Nebraska.
It's great, you guys want to have lunch. They're yelling at me. But I will take your card, so basically what's gonna happen is I'm gonna this. So right now, they're doing it at the Pines Gate. They're looking at the strength of like we have like more bandwidth in some cases, and our scalability is so that's something they want to get into. Right, so they want to recruit players like for instance, your player is the technology you do. Well, no, but when I think about that, it's like we used to have 64 players out watching, right? Right now, we've condensed it down to 1 player. But we're still missing stuff. We're missing like how do we make it the concept of having multiple channels, the concept of having real-time overlays that can be fed in, you know, on the fly, right? Let's say, you know, every 4 or 5 seconds it goes up and press a config file. Oh, we're gonna add a new set based on the set of time. You know, that would be, I don't know how that is before, but I think that was how.
That's what you all chose to say.
So what if
you want to like
that would be awesome, right?
On the weekends.
Most of these guys, these teams
No, we're
are
talking
for
Seattle.
I got display content across, you know, 65 platforms, you know, multiple operating systems. I've got, you know, X amount of bandwidth. I've got a low end, high end, bit rate, 60 frames versus 30 frames. You know, you've got all that math, but then how do you add content specifically?
That's where I know
without having to kill your player, because you used to have so many different players, right? That in most cases it didn't work. So how do you get one player that we can now say, okay, well now we use this player for gaming? What things do we just need to turn on?
That's 35 so they've got 2 places. And one is kind of like where everyone chills during the week, and the other one is kind of like a little playhouse. And basically, you know, they showtime they can make a ferry every day.
You call like JavaScript says it's
versus they got a place downtown that's very supposed to work, but it's like they're probably violating code. It's like a 1 bedroom, so everything can stay there.
And now we can
But it's crash site.
Yeah, that's always the like you gotta watch.
You guys all do that.
Look it up, make sure you can get there.
It's like this. Do you guys actually do mouse tracking around? Do you have plan on?
VR real. That's right, VR real. Start
Look them up, sign up.
Seattle.
We are emails down, I know. So look it up, there's a sign up, just drop your email.
We like the man machine analytics.
But they're doing a lot of the
cool stuff that we've been thinking about too, and
We're looking at it from like the
with
750
like in-game 360
how to build it,
viewing
the
experience,
viewer
while
match.
actually
And the other
having.
thing we look at is how do we build that player to where I can think of a pop up on a page, I can put it on a device, or in bed, that.
Okay, cool.
Exactly, and that.
Yeah.
I was talking to him earlier.
We've been talking, and it's one of the reasons I always like you, is like, struggling for a long time because of that, right?
Yeah, aside for it, it's still super stealth out.
They have the exact same experience across every different platform. Because that mobile is really, it's really difficult for some of the, really things we want to do. Like the thing I'm struggling with right now is multiple audio streams. I want to be able to send 3 or 4 different audio streams with one video. I think, well, it's almost impossible. Yeah, we've found partners that can do it, but it's just not any VR. So that's why.
Well, no, so like Akamai Atlas, level 3, you gotta understand, so those aren't even signals, there's redirectors, so you've got Akamai, right, or Atlas feeds level 3. You've got these different places. You can tell, you're like, oh shit, it's the same UI, you're like, okay, well, that doesn't, you know.
But I'll be honest with you, like,
Oh, we're just starting everything all over again. Now, there's a whole bunch of stuff that they do know to fly over. Same thing goes to Sundance, same thing goes to.
We are playing that.
We just did Activision. Mark.
Yeah.
Especially if you're
right. If you're looking, if you're like
Activision's going to do these. But what are they doing? They're going big on traditional esports.
you're looking at for consistent packet strength, you're like, wow, okay, well, how come we had 23 interrupts? What's going on?
Oh, for example,
because you're watching the stream, it's like, you're like, okay, well, at that high a frame rate, at that high a bit rate, somebody sneezes, you can tell. Right? So if I want consistent play rate for 4 hours off, you know, I'm looking at like 20 million.
Well, what if I can watch this game from multiple angles and see the stars?
If you're not concerned about distance from real time.
Maybe I'm predicting how
You can think and that's why, you know, Netflix has been streaming forever, no problem. But we're trying to, you know, fucking 30-second delay between your channel and your stream is fucking absolutely.
My point is.
And now we're on the there, like, what the fuck you said this word?
You know what the standard is.
That's gonna be
Yeah, I'm seeing Logic Bros.
That's like, even,
This one says esports channel, and this dude was like.
especially with layers sitting there.
Dude, I'm serious when I said, hey.
People are sharing overlays.
Oh, no, for audio for us, no, audio has to be spot on.
It's Roundtable and whatever,
Right, so, you know, you gotta have, it's gotta be matched.
So like, so for legal.
Well, because they didn't have an agenda, they didn't have a, I mean, I'm gonna give it a 10-minute, this is what we've done.
Which I want to head.
Here's the latest,
That's the one they said.
here's the problems we had,
I
here's
do that.
the work.
Finding good talent.
Maybe the hit you guys up there, okay, we're gonna go.
I feel fucking like sometimes it's the device, okay, because so each walk is 8 seconds, right, when you go from the CEO, okay? But it depends on what part you're in that 8-second walk. So you'll have one device will pull in the last third, or one will take in the first third.
That's where your initial buffering comes from. You get an 8-second section, it depends on, and then what happens is it starts to stitch the two together, and that's when it gets much fun. So, if you don't run on the start, you get to boom, and if you
Just a little bit, what someone,
So for instance, like
we want it.
Roku is outstanding, because it's up boom, it takes the best that it figures.
You
Some come in like, they'll pick the lowest, because it has the hardest, you know, when it comes down to the lowest, just how fast can it load that RAM, what your connection is, and what can it process quick enough. So a lot of lower end stuff will kick through like an 870, you'll see 870, 1.2.36, right? It'll walk. But if it gets enough, it'll go from 870 to 6, depending on how fast you have the stream and how the stitching issues, right? And it'll do that first 8 seconds, it does the second 8 seconds, it'll parallel the next set, and so it'll try to figure out where it is so that it slides in and it's a higher frame rate. So
And then you probably something in the water, because they don't have hot water heaters, so everything is, so they don't have hot water heaters. It's real steam water coming out.
So you have to figure out what how fast
Yeah.
under your
Yeah.
2 seconds of
And they
video.
got that kind of shit going on. You're back in this little farm stuff room, with nothing but a bed.
So you know, the pipe is usually bigger.
From the shower, you fall in the bed.
The pipe is usually bigger than the amount needed to display, right? is when you start getting there, you know, like, you're trying to pump out, like, you know,
Every edition of one's kind of like be.
Just outside. Display it or, you know,
Sale in the world.
and that's your fault. They have shitty ISP.
So we're talking, how we're talking security.
That's right.
They're high commodity.
They got kicked out of Norway.
And the person who got shit canned for,
Said it yesterday. And they moved to Iceland, Eric Durant, Lee Erickson, those guys.
well, there's no
King's
content.
kind of like,
It's really
you know, well, basically, no, from the guys, you already know, but
that come in.
all the young single Vikings, like the mass,
And they're like,
guys,
how come I can't see?
the followers, if you will, the grunts.
But we automatically get like one star.
I forbid any single
You know,
one.
we're like, we get 1 star because,
Because it was kind of a weird truce, like, he became king, they were like, well, fuck you, he's like, okay, y'all can do that, we're like, they're like, oh, fuck you, we got some land, we're gonna take it, and he's like, fine, I don't give a shit, I've not any women to go, and the theory was fucking fun. I get it, and he's like, it's the leader of their family, and they're gonna have some daughters. Fuck you, my bonus was got 500 guys, and 10 daughters, it's not, they're gonna die off. So they all went,
for us, who are on TV,
we got to do here,
they don't understand, they went, okay, you're having a problem,
you know.
it's not
Some
our
guys
fault.
will forever
Most of
go
that
nameless.
network staff, it's not
Hey,
by
you
system,
know,
it's not by the OEM.
there's some hot chicks down in Ireland.
Fucking network is bad.
So
Because of their
they
fault.
got him by,
You know, it's like, I personally,
Ireland. And Scott,
the other reason why the
supposedly the Scottish
is
became who they were
things
because
like
Vikings.
aware of.
Like all British, they also got these people in the north of the British island that all of a sudden start having these new traditions. Crazy. I believe the guys that were really fucking crazy coming from the Canadian. And anyway, the point is, they went down some fishing. So it's almost not a problem with the player. Okay.
Well, it's a problem with the player, it's just
No,
not a problem with the hardware.
90% of the time we
Takes
have
a meter.
Yeah.
And then your family, you protect you, if anyone ever attacks you, point them out, burn their village, take all their shit.
certain
Now,
systems can handle.
don't do that. We're gonna, your enemy of ours was gonna burn your village and take all of it. And so, tradition was, tradition was you marry off your daughters by age.
Takes it right out. So you have to blacklist that. You know, and you can say, okay, that person's, when you make that request, they pass it to JSON string, and it says, okay, it says manufacturer X, class X. Okay, we can remove that one out. And you literally have to go
Be more like 15.
and so now you look at it, it's a giant, you know, Excel spreadsheet of
Where now,
yes, no,
you know,
yes,
so
no,
then,
yes, no, yes, no.
the elder.
Right, and then you have to then programmatically put that in, you know, and order. There's only so many thousand switches you can do like. You know what I mean? You can go something, right? So you gotta do like these $40,000 encoders that take out like 8 streams per.
So online had kids and just kept going through the years, and so you actually had.
Per device.
Now, I'm not saying, oh, like,
Yeah, Ford. No Ford. Yeah, we got see.
You're saying in the beginning, sample population was the
Each one of our phones.
and
That is funny.
there's science behind it.
It's
You didn't realize it.
You ever heard the story what happened when Ole Miss in the 50s and 60s? So you ever see Mississippi? A lot of women from the north and from the east
Sometimes it's like, you know, okay,
sent their daughters who they wanted to run this USA, this America.
Oh god, last year, so I literally walked
To
in
get
and I
this
heard
like
the word
southern,
Mackinac
you know, it's
for
like,
the first time in
you
real
want
life.
your kid to be like
It was just like,
Queen and like Nebraska or Ohio.
so, I understand, your
Yeah,
job's are
yeah,
different, but,
you know, if your daughter's going to spirits and strong will, you want to take her down a notch, she'll go to Ole Miss for college and she'll go to New York proper Southern Belle, like, even though she's wild and crazy from Portland. So mothers from all over the country. 40s, 50s, and 60s would just fly in their beauty pageant wanted their daughters in the Ole Miss. That is much longer discussion. By the way, it's right in the feeding ground for all the rich. It's all yeah, even though it's the 50th poorest state in the country, it's still 1%. So that carried through, and they said from like 1956 to like 1961, to be in every Miss America, I went to Ole Miss. Even though they were from all over the country, but what college did you go to? She can be from Ohio, she can be from Nebraska, she can be from Oregon. She went to Ole Miss and learned everything. She intended to be taught later. This whole area. And to this day, Ole Miss has a good teaching program. So you change the percentage. I think we both want to be at the 10%, right? Like right now, we're in the college football team. So when I was in high school, I'm from Louisiana, LSU has some nice